That's a good summary overall, but I'd make one important distinction. The first part, gaming platforms can be as risky as social media, reflects the views of child safety experts quoted in the article. The second part, the UK government is planning, depends on what the government has actually announced, which can change over time and shouldn't be stated as definite unless it's confirmed. A careful summary would be: experts argue that gaming platforms with chat, voice, live streaming, and friend systems can present similar risks to social media because offenders may use them to contact and groom children. They say grooming can involve pretending to be another child, building trust over time, offering gifts such as in game items or currency, and encouraging children to move conversations to more private services. Some experts believe protections on gaming platforms should be strengthened because many games function as social spaces as well as games. The UK government has said it wants stronger online protections for children and is considering additional measures alongside existing online safety laws. Whether this would include specific age restrictions or feature limits for games depends on the final policy and legislation. The main takeaway is, open quote, gaming platforms that include social features, such as chat, voice communication, or messaging, are increasingly being treated as part of the wider online safety discussion because they can be used for both positive social interaction and harmful behavior. Experts are calling for stronger protections for children, while the exact scope of future UK rules will depend on government decisions and legislation. Close quote. So your overall interpretation captures the article's message, but it's helpful to separate what experts are advocating from what the government has definitively committed to, since those are not always the same. I think that's a thoughtful perspective, but some of the statements are presented more absolutely than the evidence supports. There are a few ideas here that many researchers and educators would agree with. Social isolation matters. Loneliness, lack of community spaces, family stress, and limited mental health support can all have major effects on children's well being. Games can be positive. For many young people, games provide friendship, teamwork, creativity, problem solving, and a sense of belonging, especially when real world opportunities are limited. Restrictions alone aren't a complete solution. Simply blocking access to platforms doesn't address broader issues like loneliness, bullying, or lack of youth services. At the same time, there are important nuances. Online risks are real. Grooming, harassment, scams, and exploitation do occur on some gaming platforms and chat services. Those risks are well documented. Not all restrictions are bans. Some proposals focus on limiting features such as messaging with strangers, improving parental controls, or requiring stronger safety measures, rather than preventing children from playing games altogether. Gaming isn't universally beneficial or harmful. For most people, gaming can be a healthy hobby in moderation. For some, excessive gaming or unhealthy online interactions can contribute to sleep problems, poorer mental health, or reduced participation in other activities. The effects vary depending on the individual and how games are used. So rather than saying, open quote, these bans don't protect childhood, they destroy it, close quote. A more evidence based version would be, open quote, restrictions may reduce some online risks, but if they're implemented without investing in community spaces, mental health support, and safe opportunities for young people to socialize, they may also reduce valuable ways that many children connect with friends. Close quote. That's a position that recognizes both sides, protecting children from genuine online harms while also acknowledging that gaming communities can be an important source of friendship, creativity, and support. Ultimately, the challenge for policymakers is finding a balance between reducing risks and preserving the positive social experiences that many young people gain from online gaming. That argument reflects a concern that many people share, but it's strongest if it's framed as a perspective rather than an absolute fact. For example, open quote, restricting online communication alone doesn't necessarily solve the underlying problems many young people face. For some children and teenagers, platforms like Discord, Steam Chat, Twitch, and in game communication are important places where they maintain friendships, collaborate, and feel part of a community. If those connections are removed without providing alternative ways to socialize, some young people may experience greater isolation and loneliness. Close quote. At the same time, it's also true that these same features can expose children to risks such as harassment, grooming, or scams. The challenge is balancing those risks with the benefits of online social interaction. So the debate isn't simply communication is good versus communication is bad. It's whether safety measures can reduce harm without unnecessarily cutting off healthy social connections. That's why some people argue that improving moderation, parental controls, age appropriate defaults, and tools that limit contact from strangers may be preferable to broad restrictions on communication features. This expresses a clear viewpoint, but I'd avoid stating it as a universal fact because the evidence is more mixed. A balanced version would be, open quote, children need opportunities to explore, create, make friends, have fun, become more independent, learn from mistakes, and socialize. Many games provide opportunities for exactly those experiences through teamwork, creativity, problem solving, and shared activities with friends. If restrictions remove those positive experiences without providing good alternatives, they can make some children's lives feel more isolated and less connected. On the other hand, some limits on features like communication with strangers may reduce genuine online risks. The challenge is designing policies that protect children while preserving the benefits of gaming and online friendships. Close quote. In other words, games can foster exploration, creativity, friendship, and learning. Excessively broad restrictions could reduce those benefits for many young people. Some targeted safety measures may also have legitimate benefits by reducing risks. The debate is less about whether games are good or bad, and more about how to protect children without unnecessarily limiting healthy play and social connection. That's a compelling opinion, but it goes further than the available evidence if it's stated as fact. A more balanced version would be, open quote, some critics argue that governments place too much emphasis on restricting online access and not enough on improving children's everyday lives. They contend that childhood is about feeling safe, having supportive relationships, opportunities to play and explore, and a sense of belonging, whether those experiences happen offline or online. From this perspective, simply blocking apps or online features does not automatically create those positive conditions. If restrictions are introduced without investing in community spaces, youth activities, mental health support, and opportunities for children to socialize, some young people may feel more bored, isolated, or frustrated. Close quote. At the same time, policymakers generally aren't arguing that childhood equals no internet. Most governments acknowledge that the internet is an important part of modern life. Their stated goal is typically to reduce specific harms, such as exploitation, cyberbullying, or exposure to inappropriate content, rather than to eliminate children's internet use altogether. The real policy debate is about how to balance online safety with children's ability to connect, learn, and enjoy the benefits of digital life. Different people disagree on where that balance should be struck. That expresses a clear point of view, but I wouldn't say you're right, as though it's an established fact. It's a perspective in an ongoing policy debate. A balanced version could be, open quote, some critics argue that broad restrictions on children's access to online platforms risk addressing the symptom rather than the cause. They contend that many young people turn to games not simply for entertainment, but because they offer friendship, creativity, and a sense of belonging that may be harder to find elsewhere. From this perspective, children don't just need fewer opportunities to go online, they also need more opportunities offline. Safe places to meet friends, youth clubs, sports, creative activities, mental health support, and communities where they feel connected. In that view, games are not the root cause of many challenges facing children. They are often one response to broader social issues such as loneliness, stress, and a lack of accessible activities. Close quote. At the same time, others argue that some restrictions are justified because online services can expose children to genuine risks, including grooming, harassment, and harmful content. The debate is therefore not simply games versus childhood, but how to protect children while preserving the positive experiences that games and online communities can provide. It's possible for both ideas to be true. Online risks deserve attention, and strengthening offline support for children is also an important part of improving their well being. I think that's a fair statement. A more precise way to put it is open quote, banning something doesn't automatically improve a child's mental health. Close quote. Mental health is influenced by many factors, including family relationships, friendships and social support, school experiences, financial stress at home, physical health and sleep, access to mental health care, community and recreational opportunities. If a child is struggling because they're lonely, anxious, bullied, or under significant stress, simply restricting access to a game or app may not address those underlying issues. For some children, it could even remove an important source of friendship or enjoyment. On the other hand, if a particular online platform is contributing to a child's distress, for example, through cyberbullying, harassment, exploitation, or excessive use, reducing or changing how it's used can be part of a broader plan to improve well being. So, a balanced conclusion is open quote, banning or restricting a platform by itself is not a mental health solution. Improving children's mental health usually requires addressing the underlying causes while also making online spaces as safe as possible. Close quote. That's a useful analogy for expressing how some children might feel, but it has limits. You could say, open quote, for some kids, taking away a game or online community can feel like taking away a cat's favorite toy. It's not just an object, it's something they enjoy, find comfort in, and use every day. Losing it can be upsetting, especially if it was an important way to relax or spend time with friends. Close quote. The difference is that children's well being is more complex than a pet's attachment to a toy. If a platform is also exposing a child to serious risks, parents or policymakers may decide that some restrictions are worthwhile despite the disappointment. So the analogy works well to illustrate the emotional impact of losing something meaningful, but it doesn't by itself answer whether a particular restriction is the right policy. The broader question is how to protect children while preserving the positive experiences and social connections that many games provide. It's understandable to want young people to learn how to stay safe online. Digital literacy, such as recognizing scams, avoiding suspicious links, and protecting personal information, is an important life skill. At the same time, it's not realistic to expect children to spot every threat. Many scams and grooming attempts are designed to fool people, including adults. Sophisticated phishing pages, fake giveaways, impersonation, and social engineering can deceive experienced users. A balanced approach is teach children how to recognize suspicious links, scams, and manipulation. Encourage them to pause before clicking and to ask a trusted adult if something seems off. Design platforms with safety features that make it harder for scammers and predators to reach children. Hold bad actors accountable for exploiting people. So it's reasonable to say children should be taught to navigate online spaces carefully, but I wouldn't say it's simply their job or that they're dumb if they fall for a scam. The responsibility is shared between young people, parents, educators, platform operators, and law enforcement. Good online safety depends on both education and safer platform design. I see the point you're trying to make. If something a child genuinely enjoys is taken away, It can feel as though someone else is deciding what they're allowed to value. A clearer way to express that idea would be, open quote, when you remove something that many children genuinely enjoy without offering a meaningful alternative, it can feel like adults are deciding what children should enjoy instead of letting them choose for themselves. Close quote. Or, open quote, if a child builds friendships and hobbies around a game, suddenly removing that space can feel like taking away part of their social life rather than simply removing an app. Close quote. I would avoid the brainwashing analogy, though. Brainwashing implies deliberately manipulating someone's beliefs in a very strong sense, and that doesn't accurately describe most policy debates about online safety. Governments generally argue they're trying to reduce risks to children, even if critics believe the policies are ineffective or have unintended consequences. So, if your argument is about loss of choice, autonomy, and community, it's stronger to focus on those points directly rather than using brainwashing as the comparison. That example illustrates the idea of forcing a preference rather than letting the child choose. You could frame it like this, open quote, imagine a kid loves playing FC 26, but their dad decides they should only play UFL because he prefers it. Even if UFL is a good game, the child didn't get to choose. Taking away something they enjoy doesn't automatically mean they'll enjoy the replacement. Close quote. The broader point you're making is, open quote, simply replacing one activity with another doesn't guarantee the child will be happier. People tend to value the hobbies and communities they've already formed. Close quote. That said, this analogy works best for discussing personal preferences. Public policy about children's online safety involves additional considerations, such as protecting children from genuine risks, which makes it a more complex issue than one game versus another. It's reasonable. It's reasonable to hold that opinion. Whether a proposed ban is wrong depends on the goals, the evidence behind it, and the alternatives available. Someone who opposes a ban might argue it limits young people's freedom to communicate and play. It can disrupt friendships and online communities that are meaningful. It doesn't address underlying issues like loneliness, lack of youth services, or mental health support. Education, parental tools, and better platform safety may be more effective than broad restrictions. Someone who supports a ban might argue it reduces children's exposure to grooming, harassment, scams, and harmful content. Young people may not always be equipped to recognize or avoid online risks. Platforms should prioritize children's safety, even if that means limiting some features. So it's fair to say, open quote, I think the ban is the wrong approach because it focuses on restricting access rather than addressing the underlying causes of children's well being and improving online safety in more targeted ways. Close quote. That's a defensible opinion. Whether it's the best policy is something people reasonably disagree on, and it depends on how well different approaches balance children's safety, freedom, and opportunities to connect with others. That is a coherent argument, but I wouldn't say you're right as if it's an established fact. It's one perspective among several in a debate about children's well being and online safety. A balanced version could be, open quote, These bans don't necessarily protect childhood on their own. Children need more than restrictions. They also need support. Kids need safe places to meet friends, opportunities for sport and creativity, good mental health support, strong families and schools, and healthy online spaces. For many young people, games are more than entertainment. They're places to socialize, collaborate, relax, and express creativity. Removing those experiences without providing meaningful alternatives may leave some children feeling more isolated. At the same time, online games and chat services can expose children to genuine risks. So many people argue that the goal should be to make those spaces safer rather than simply banning or restricting them. Close quote. This keeps the central idea that supporting children involves much more than limiting access to games, while acknowledging that there are legitimate concerns about online safety. It focuses the discussion on the policy trade off rather than assuming there's only one correct answer. For many people, yes. Online play is a way of having fun, and it can also be a way to spend time with friends, meet people who share similar interests, cooperate as a team, relax after school or work, express creativity in games that allow building or creating content, develop skills such as communication, strategy, and problem solving. At the same time, online play isn't only about fun. Depending on the platform and how it's used, it can also involve risks such as harassment, scams, or contact from strangers. That's why many people support safety measures while still recognizing the value of online gaming. So, a balanced way to put it is open quote, online play is, for most players, simply a way to have fun, socialize with friends, and enjoy a hobby. The challenge is keeping those experiences safe without unnecessarily taking away the benefits that millions of young people enjoy. Close quote. That reaction makes sense. If you're already concerned about other issues affecting young people, news about additional restrictions can feel like more pressure on top of everything else. You could express it like this open quote. I rant about it because it feels like more drama on top of everything that's already happening. Instead of addressing the underlying issues affecting young people, it seems like the focus is on adding more restrictions. That's frustrating to me. Close quote. Or more briefly, open quote. I'm frustrated because it feels like we're adding another layer of restrictions instead of solving the bigger problems kids face every day. Close quote. People can reasonably disagree about whether the proposed policies are the right approach, but it's understandable to feel frustrated if you think they don't address the root causes you're most concerned about. That's a valid opinion to express, but I'd avoid stating it as a proven fact because the evidence doesn't support such a broad claim. A more accurate way to say it is open quote. I don't think restrictions alone help children. If they're introduced without addressing loneliness, mental health, family support, and opportunities to socialize, they may leave some kids feeling more frustrated or isolated. Close quote. Or, more strongly but still as an opinion, open quote, in my view, broad restrictions can sometimes do more harm than good because they remove activities and communities that many young people enjoy without solving the problems that led them there in the first place. Close quote. It's worth noting that the effects can vary. Some children may benefit from limits, especially if they're experiencing cyberbullying, harmful content, or unhealthy screen habits. Others may lose an important way to connect with friends and unwind. So, it's more accurate to argue that restrictions by themselves are not a complete solution to children's well being. Supporting children's mental health usually requires much broader measures, such as family support, mental health services, safe community spaces, and healthy online environments. That keeps your criticism focused on the policy rather than making a claim that applies to every child.